Let's click onto the Global Tropical Overview for July the 17th or 18th in the West Pacific 2023. As is always the case in these videos, the thoughts expressed are mine alone, and when making decisions ahead of any tropical cyclones, look towards your local weather office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. So we've got two systems that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Calvin and 98W in the West Pacific. We're not going to talk about Talim, as the forecasting phase of that storm is really done, as the system has already made landfall in China. But starting off with Calvin, you can see it has entered the Central Pacific today after crossing 140 degrees west of longitude. And now the system is not looking too hot today at all. Well, not really lots of, just lacking convection in general. And this is a factor of the cool seasonal temperatures and dry air just in general in this region. Though the thunderstorm activity looks to be enough just to consider it still a tropical storm. Now we did have Recon fly in a little bit earlier today. I believe they might be going back to Hawaii now. But you can see the strong winds on the northern side of the circulation with weak winds on the southern side. And this is to be expected given the pressure gradient that there is between the ridge in the north and the actual center pressure. Now the pressure here says about 1,002. That was about right. The drop zone had about 1,001 millibars. Earlier it was 1,009, so we've seen a pressure increase over the past couple of hours. And the reason that we have those strong winds on the northern side again is the environmental pressure up here is pretty high. You can see you go pretty quickly from, say, 1,016 to 1,012 to 1,001 millibars in the actual center. So that's creating a pretty tight gradient there, and you can see that increased wind on the northern side with a lacking gradient on the southern side because you don't have nearly as tight as a gradient on that side. But this system is going to continue tracking westwards, and as it does so, impacts will likely be brought to Hawaii, regardless of if this is a brief or weak tropical cyclone or open wave or remnant low. We're still likely going to have those strong winds on the northern side, and you can see they're more pronounced on the northern side because of that gradient. So even if this system misses the Big Island for a landfall, you're still going to get some significant winds here, and a tropical storm watch is in place. Now, if the system does come further north, we may see an expansion of those tropical storm watches further north into the islands, so like Maui and up towards maybe Honolulu. But in general, regardless of track here, heavy rainfall and strong winds will be brought to the islands. Now, in higher elevations of particularly the Big Island, there may be some stronger winds. Winds right now are about 45 to 50 miles per hour, as estimated by Recon. They may come down a little bit more as the system approaches the islands, but in areas further up, you may have some enhanced winds. But alongside that, with the mountainous terrain, you can get some onshore flow with that moisture content that it has on the northern side, and you can get some enhanced rainfall even far away from the center. So that's something to keep in mind. So stay tuned to the National Weather Service and the Central Pacific Hurricane Center for the latest information on Calvin. All right, we're going to move now to the West Pacific, as we're going to be watching Invest 98W here, centered just about west of Palau by my estimates. You can see some southwesterly winds on the southern side with some easterly winds, as I highlighted there on the northern side. This is generally an area of low pressure, and this general circulation was confirmed earlier by an ASCAT pass way earlier this morning, my time. This would be last night, local time, but you can see the broad circulation in general there right over Palau. Now, as the system comes north, the general idea remains the same, that the system will have a favorable environment, low shear and divergent flow aloft, and that with the sea surface temperatures being so warm and the oceanic heat content being so high, will likely make for a significant storm, potentially, at least by the models are saying right now. Now, here's a GFS model. Now, the GFS has shifted quite a bit in track over the past day. You can see, though, on the upper level map, you can see the trough here, like I talked about yesterday, and the ridge here. These will help the outflow aloft, and there's also a fairly low shear environment. If I look at a sounding here, you can see a very moist profile overall with the relative humidity about 92%, with shear pretty low. And just for consistency to see if this goes between models, here's a European at the same time. You can see generally same type of deal here. We've got low shear and fairly high relative humidity. Now here's the sea surface temperatures, and you can see just how warm they are, 29 to 30 degrees Celsius here in the Philippine Sea, with oceanic heat content that is pretty high. In fact, it's on the upper end of the scale here on this map. You can see that maxima there east of the Philippines. Now, even as you get north towards, say, Luzon, towards Taiwan, the oceanic heat content is certainly less, but it's still of significant values here on the legend there. This is pretty good oceanic-wise, and atmospheric-wise, it looks pretty good as well. Now, the main issue right now is track. There's a lot of uncertainty on exactly how this system is going to track, and it depends on a few things, but primarily from what I'm seeing in modeling today, we're not seeing the GFS stall it here in the Philippine Sea like it was yesterday. We're seeing mainly the differences being in this trough up north, west of Korea, west of Japan. This trough on some models is strong enough and south enough to where it puts a break in the ridging up north. So this system is able to slip north going around this ridge to the east. Now, the GFS is not showing this. It's showing this trough a little bit weaker than models say like the Canadian is. And so we don't really get a break between ridges here. We just have a solid ridge here that turns the system towards Luzon. Now, even in this turn, there's a lot of uncertainty. This is, getting towards 6 to 7 days out. We've seen models have this turn towards Taiwan, towards the South China Sea, north of Luzon, and towards Luzon like the GFS does. Now, the European is very similar to the GFS right now, having that ridge in place, an even stronger ridge, in fact, and there's that trough as well. And you can see that general turning occurring towards Luzon. Now, the Canadian here, and these are at the same frames here, the European and the Canadian. Note where the trough is on the European. We've got it here pretty far north on the European, but the Canadian is down here near Korea. So it's a bit further south, and this puts it in a place to where it's able to put a break between these two 591 ridges here. So this is a little bit of a break, and this storm is able to slip through on the eastern or western fringe of this ridge and go towards Taiwan, China, and the southern Japanese islands. That's a little bit of uncertainty there, and we'll just have to see exactly how the pattern evolves over the next several days before we can really get an idea on exactly how this storm is going to steer. This is several days out. I can show you some ensemble plots. You can see generally the same picture as yesterday. The Canadian ensembles much more keen on the idea of the system going north. The GFS ensembles much more keen on this system making that curve towards the northwest. Going to be something to watch, especially for the Philippines, Taiwan, and the southern Japanese islands over the next week. And my recommendation for those in these areas that I'm highlighting here in the Philippines all the way up north is just to stay tuned to local weather offices and stay tuned to the Japan Meteorological Agency. They're going to have the best information on this and the latest information on it as well. Right now, it's not an imminent threat, but it is something to monitor over the next several days. The environment that the models are showing here is very favorable, as I said yesterday, and it's just something to pay attention to, as it is, again, that time of year where we're starting to get more into the peak season in the Northern Hemisphere, so this is something that you more expect. But for those, again, Philippines, Taiwan, and southern Japanese islands, and even areas in China and South Korea, I just pay attention to the system. Close attention if you're in the Philippines all the way up to the southern Japanese islands. You can see on some of the ensemble tracks of timing, we're talking 7 days on the ensemble mean here, on the mean track for the system to actually come towards Luzon. So we have time to watch this, and there is time to prepare. So that is good news. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching.